Maria Taylor, welcome back to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you so much. That's how I get to start the season, so we might as well start talking Alabama football now, right?
Absolutely. Have you already started your prep? I'm just curious if you've started kind of breaking down some film and getting ready for this big one.
Absolutely. Well, I've actually been getting ready for kind of the first 3 weeks. I've been out to Oklahoma. I was at Tennessee yesterday. I'm headed to Miami tomorrow. Going to check in with Georgia Tech because we're doing that Labor Day Monday game. And just got to make it to Tuscaloosa now. But you're an easy drive. I live in Atlanta now, so I'll be over there soon.
It is easy now, and plus we got the better food out of all the places that you just named. We have better food here in Tuscaloosa. I'll just go ahead and put it out there. We're number one in football in AP poll, and we've got to be number one in food too. We're pretty solid when it comes to that.
Especially barbecue.
Oh yeah,
got to be barbecue.
No
right?
doubt. Listen, it's plus they're our sponsors, so we've got to amp it up a little bit too. But hey, let me just get your thoughts on the AP poll. What was your big takeaway? I know it was some of those teams that we automatically always see at the top, but just your thoughts on the AP poll that was released earlier today.
I think, a big thought is just the idea Clemson didn't receive a first-place vote at all, and that's your national champion from a season ago. Definitely thought it was cool Penn State being as high as they were, being number 6. I think it's always good when the giants like USC, Alabama, Penn State are ranked really high in the poll. Obviously Alabama being number 1 for the second consecutive season. The pressure is always on, but the reasons for the first-place votes are also always there. So, when I look at, the top 10, it was cool to see some of the names back in there that you are used to or became accustomed to seeing over the course of college football history.
Maria, when you look at Florida State this upcoming year, what do you see in this football team that'll be their strength and sort of go to their bread and butter?
Oh, I definitely think it's going to be defense. They have a nasty defensive front, and not to mention the leadership of guys like Derwin James and what he's been able to do over the course of his career at Florida State. And even when I was there, it just seemed like the defense set the tone in practice. And it was an amped up, they were fired up. You could tell that all eyes are on kind of that first game of the season, looking forward to September 2nd. Everyone was focused in on the small details, but for sure, being able to watch it in action and just kind of see their defense going up against each other, like the competitive nature and the fire was there for every single tick of the clock during their practice.
Does this game simply come down when we talk about their offensive line? DeAndre Francois was able to stay in there, and you won't find another, a quarterback that's tougher than DeAndre Francois. But you look at this offensive line, they've got to give him ultimate protection to beat Alabama. Is that fair?
You know what I think? I think that this game comes down to the offensive line on both sides. Like, at the end of the day, it's like which unit is going to perform better? Because we know that both of these defenses are going to play well. Who's going to give up the least amount of sacks? Who's going to give their quarterback time to make good decisions? Because at any given second, if there's just a crack in the offense on either side for either team, that's where the competitive advantage is going to be taking place. So I think it's going to come down to that O-line ultimately, and I think it goes for Florida State and DeAndre Francois. I think it goes for Jalen Hurts and his ability to be able to make great decisions based on not constantly feeling pressure coming at him while he's trying to get the ball out of his hand.
When you think about it, I've got a little stat here I'll throw for you, and I know you and your stats information team at ESPN probably already know this. I'm sure Brad Edwards all over these type of stats. But when you look at since Alabama beat LSU in 2011, there's been 77 AP poll rankings. Alabama or Florida State have been ranked since 2011 53 of those 77 times. It just tells you the two heavyweights in this matchup, not just for 2017, but even since 2001, they've been right there as the two giant killers.
I know. And isn't it great to finally see them, in a week 1 matchup, to see two teams of that caliber with all the stats. And as you spit them out, think about how many times we've just tried to reiterate how great these two teams are. You can slice it so many different ways and how many times they've been in the conversation for a national championship. But then also this idea that even though these two teams play in this very first game, whoever loses is in no way, shape, or form out of the running to making it into the top 4 at the end of the season. The fact that both these teams could meet in a national championship game, they could start the season in Atlanta and end in Atlanta. How cool would that storyline be? When you look at just how huge this is to the college football landscape, it might not be as far as if you lose, you're out, but it is pretty cool to see the top two teams going at it.
Maria,
two of the top three teams.
Since you live in Atlanta, have you had a chance to go inside the new stadium?
I haven't, but it's been fun to watch it go up. There's been a couple opportunities to walk through it, and I just missed it at the college football seminar, mostly because they would have had us waking up at like 6 a.m. I couldn't do it. But I know that I'll be over there next week for sure to check it out, so I will get to take a look at it before we're finally in there for the game.
Everybody just says when they walk in, it's that awe moment. It's like walking up to the Grand Canyon. You just lose your breath when you walk into the facility. Everybody says it's the same thing when you walk in, what is it, $1.2, $1.3 billion stadium. But you walk in, you're like, wow, this is like the palace.
Well, it's funny. When you drive past it now, even when you see the outside of it compared to the Georgia Dome, which just looked like our beast of a stadium, now the Georgia Dome looks like a JV stadium or something, like maybe high school basketball could take place in there. Like, seeing those two right next to each other just shows you like how immensely greater and bigger and better Mercedes-Benz Stadium is than what, the Falcons had previously.
Being a former athlete and understanding coaching the way that you do, is there something that stands out to you about Nick Saban that has allowed him to be so successful?
Oh, for sure. I think the biggest thing is, and we're seeing a change, in the collegiate athlete, right? So they're not quite the same. A lot of times you hear coaches saying, I can't coach them as hard as I want to. They don't respond to negativity or correction or critiques because it's the new generation. It's the way it is. What stands out to me about Nick Saban is the fact that he still has the ear and the eyes of his football team. It doesn't matter if they're 17 or if they're 22 and they've been on the team for 4 years. When they step foot on campus, when they get to practice, they know who the boss is, they know what the expectation is, and they know that if they don't deliver, that they won't play. And he doesn't lose anybody because of that. I mean, you don't just see a lot of kids like, yeah, I'm out of here. There's never like a mass exodus from Alabama because kids know that they're going there for a reason and they're going to get better. So the fact that he's still been able to hold on to this just gravitational pull with a young group of kids that can be very fickle, that can be cynical, that can be hard to coach is interesting. And I see that across all sports. I'm not just talking football. I see it when I talk to men's basketball coaches, women's basketball coaches, softball coaches. They're losing their kids' attention, and it seems like Nick Saban has never done that.
I mean, you ever feel like you hit the lottery when you look at your job and the way that you have just advanced in this profession? I mean, you're going to be making your Saturday night football debut with one of the two heavyweights of this last 10 years when you look at Florida State, being able to cover this for a living, to be able to make your jump to ESPN College Football GameDay analyst. I mean, you hit the lottery, right?
Oh, for sure. I tell people, I'm like, I just won the battle of attrition. It's like I was the last one here, and they're like, okay, girl, well, I guess you have to do the games now. So I'm more than happy to do them. But I think even the fact that, the whole season kind of starts and ends in Atlanta. Like, it seems like a lot of stars have aligned for this to be my first season doing our ABC games, to be my first season doing College GameDay. I feel like I get to start out at home, and so many of the teams are near me. I mean, they're just driving distance, and I grew up in the heart of college football. I mean, growing up in the South, like, I'm in the suburbs of Atlanta where every single Saturday and Sunday, all we're talking about is football. So it's fun now to have that be my workload. I mean, because you get to talk football all the time, how awesome our jobs really are.
Maria, what's your biggest question about Alabama other than that offensive line?
I think it's still just the progression of Jalen Hurts. Like, I think everyone wants to know, okay, so what's the next phase in the evolution of Jalen Hurts? We know he's a coach's kid. We know that he receives critiques. We know that he can handle pressure in the spotlight. So what is the next level? What is that sophomore season going to look like? Is it a sophomore slump, or is it going to be a huge season because the leaps and bounds he's able to take with a whole nother spring and fall camp under his belt?
Maria, final question. When you look at the AP poll, is there somebody that maybe on that lower part of the top 10 or maybe outside of the top 10 that you're like to keep your eye on that maybe make a run at this college football playoff?
Oh, man, there's so many great teams. Let's see. I think that Washington, always the Pac-12, when we think about it, maybe we don't give them enough love and as many looks as we probably should. I think Oklahoma State, like Gundy, he's been working up towards this season. I feel like we've looked to Oklahoma State and said, okay, yeah, I think 2017 is going to be the year for them. You got a senior quarterback, a lot of experience coming back as well. And then, of course, Auburn. I know they're down there at 12.
Now, hold on. You're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Don't.
I'm just saying. Let's fire it up now. Let me get you some callers to call in. We don't know what Auburn is even going to look like. There's so many surprises. But I wouldn't be surprised if they exceeded expectations, because I think they've struggled with preseason expectations in the past, with there being so many unknowns and having to fight their way up. Like, I think this could be an unexpected, eventful season for the Tigers.